Like and make sure to engage in comments and share this video to your friends and story lovers, and click on the subscribe button on the screen to subscribe to Inquisco for more real and true stories like this. I never thought anything like this could happen to me, or almost happen. But that's the thing about life. You think you know yourself, and then one day, someone walks in and shakes the ground beneath your feet. It started with work. I've been with the franchise for almost a decade, handling sponsorships and player engagements. It's the kind of job that requires you to know people, to read between the lines, to navigate egos and expectations. I love it. I love the energy of the games, the late-night deals, the whispered conversations courtside. And then there was him, Jared Simmons, the team's VP of Operations, tall, built like the former player he was, with a quiet authority that made people stop talking when he walked into a room. He had a way of making you feel seen when he spoke to you, like you were the only person in the world for that moment. I noticed that the first time we met, but it was just an observation, a passing thought, until it wasn't. It wasn't any one thing. It was a series of moments, a slow build, a glance held a little too long during a boardroom meeting, an inside joke exchanged over drinks at a team event, the way he leaned in slightly when we spoke, how his eyes flickered to my lips before snapping back to my eyes. I told myself I was imagining it. I was married. He was married. This was nothing. But then there were the small things. The way he started remembering details I barely mentioned, how I liked my coffee, the name of my childhood dog, the fact that I hated flying but loved road trips. He teased me about it one night after a game when we found ourselves alone in the executive lounge, the city lights stretching out behind us. "You'd rather drive 12 hours than sit on a plane for 2, he asked, shaking his head. "Some of us prefer to see the world at our own pace," I said, sipping my wine. He smiled. "Some of us don't mind a little turbulence." There was something in the way he said it, a quiet challenge. I felt it in my chest, in my stomach. I should have looked away. I should have changed the subject. But I didn't. That was the first time I realized I was playing with fire. The second time was in the middle of an away game. We were in Dallas, staying at one of those high-end hotels where everything smelled like expensive cologne and the walls muffled the sounds of the world outside. It had been a long day of meetings, and I was drained, sitting in the hotel bar with a bourbon I hadn't touched yet. I was scrolling through my phone, half-heartedly checking emails, when I heard his voice. "Long day?" I looked up, and there he was, loosening his tie as he settled into the seat beside me. He didn't ask to sit. He just did, and I let him. Exhausting, I admitted. He signaled the bartender and ordered a drink. "We pulled it off, though. The sponsors are happy," I nodded, tapping my glass. "We make a good team." The words felt heavier the second they left my mouth. A good team. That's all we were. That's all we could be. But for some reason, the air between us shifted. He studied me for a moment before taking a slow sip of his drink. "We do," he said finally. Silence settled between us, comfortable but charged. I wasn't sure how long we sat there, just breathing the same air, the sounds of the bar fading into background noise. Then my phone buzzed. My husband. I felt a wave of guilt so sudden it nearly knocked the wind out of me. Nothing had happened. Nothing would happen, but I still felt it. "I should head up," I said quickly, grabbing my glass and downing what was left in one quick gulp. Jared didn't argue. He just watched me, eyes steady, unreadable. "Good night," he said. I turned and walked away, feeling the weight of his gaze on my back the entire way to the elevator. That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. I told myself I would keep my distance after that night in Dallas. I had to. The feeling that settled in my chest when I walked away from that bar wasn't just guilt. It was something else. something I didn't want to name. It wasn't just that I found Jared attractive. It would have been easy to brush off. It was that, somehow, he had slipped past my defenses. And once someone gets in, it's hard to get them out. The season was picking up, and with it came more travel, more late nights, more reasons to cross paths. We had meetings together, shared car rides from airports, sat side by side during games, murmuring observations between sips of whatever was in our cups. Sometimes it was coffee, sometimes something stronger. And then came Chicago. It was another road game, another 5-star hotel with crisp white sheets and city views that stretched for miles. The team had pulled off a win, and the front office was in good spirits, drinks flowing freely in one of the executive suites after the game. I had been standing near the window, laughing at something one of the assistants said, when I felt him beside me. Jared, close, too close. I didn't move away, neither did he. "Good win," I said, my voice steady, my pulse anything but. He nodded, taking a slow sip of his drink. His arm brushed mine, barely, just enough to make me notice. "Good night for it." His voice was smooth, low, almost lost beneath the hum of conversation behind us. I turned to face him, and for a second we just looked at each other, and then his phone buzzed. I didn't have to look to know who it was. He exhaled, pulled it out of his pocket, glanced at the screen. Then he turned it face down on the bar beside us. That was the moment. The first real moment where I knew that this wasn't just some harmless thing playing out in my mind. I should have walked away. I should have gone back to my room and reminded myself of everything I stood to lose. But I didn't. Instead, I finished my drink, set my glass down, and let my fingers trail along the edge of the bar as I turned to leave. Not an invitation, not exactly, but something close. I didn't look back, but I felt him watching me, and that should have been the end of it. But of course it wasn't. About an hour later, I was in my hotel room, hair still damp from the shower, sitting on the edge of the bed staring at my phone. I wasn't expecting a message, wasn't waiting for one. But then there was a knock at my door, soft, deliberate. I froze. For a second, I didn't move, didn't breathe. My heart hammered so loudly I was sure whoever was on the other side of that door could hear it. I knew who it was before I even reached for the handle. I opened it without thinking. Jared stood there, leaning casually against the frame like he had every right to be there. His tie was gone, the top buttons of his shirt undone, a drink still in his hand. His eyes met mine, dark and unreadable. "Just wanted to say good night," he said, voice low, slow. My fingers tightened on the door. "Jared." "I know," he cut in, a small, knowing smile on his lips. "I know." Silence stretched between us. The hallway felt too quiet, the space between us too small. Then slowly he lifted his hand and traced the edge of the doorframe beside me. Not touching me, but close enough that I felt it anyway. For the briefest second, I almost leaned in. Almost, but I didn't. Instead, I stepped back. Just an inch. Just enough to make the message clear. He exhaled, the tension between us thick enough to suffocate. Then he gave a slow nod, like he understood, like he agreed, and then he turned and walked away. I shut the door, pressing my forehead against it, breathing deep, trying to steady myself. I had almost let it happen, and that terrified me more than anything. I barely slept that night. I kept replaying the moment at the door, the way Jared had looked at me, how I had felt something shift inside me, something dangerous. I had told myself I had control, that I could keep this in check, but control was slipping, and I didn't know if I wanted to catch it. The next morning I avoided him. I left my room early, took my coffee to go, and kept myself occupied until it was time to leave for the airport. I thought maybe the distance would reset things, pull us both back to reality. But I underestimated the pull. The moment we were back in town, the silence between us became louder. We weren't avoiding each other. Not exactly, but something had changed. There were fewer words, but more weight in every glance, every accidental touch. And then one evening it all came to a head. We had both stayed late at the facility. He was in meetings, and I had been catching up on sponsorship reports. Most people had already left, the building quieter than usual, the halls dim. I was in my office when I heard footsteps outside my door. Slow, measured. Then a knock. I knew who it was before I even turned. Jared leaned against the frame, his expression unreadable. But his eyes said everything. "You're still here," he said. I set my pen down, my pulse quickening. "So are you." A small smile. Couldn't leave just yet. Neither of us moved. The air between us tightened, thick, with something unsaid. Then he stepped inside and shut the door behind him. I should have stopped him. I didn't. Instead, I stood up, my breath shallow, my entire body aware of just how close we were, how small the space had suddenly become. "Jared." My voice was barely above a whisper. He didn't say anything at first. He just watched me, studied me, like he was memorizing every inch of my face. Then he took another step closer. "If you tell me to walk out of this room right now," he said slowly, "I will." The words hung between us, thick, electric. I should have told him to leave. I should have reminded myself of my husband, of his wife, of everything this would destroy. But I didn't, because for the first time I wasn't sure I wanted him to go. And in that moment, with only inches between us, I knew that if he touched me, if he so much as reached for me, I wouldn't stop him. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but before I could, his phone buzzed, loud, sharp, a sudden crack in the tension. Jared exhaled, jaw tightening, pulling back just slightly. He glanced at her screen, and I saw it, the name, his wife. For a split second, he hesitated, and that was all it took. Reality crashed back in, sharp and brutal. I stepped back. "You should get that." His eyes flickered with something unreadable. Then, with one last lingering glance, he turned and walked out the door. I stood there for a long time after he left, my heart still pounding. I had almost let it happen. And the worst part? A part of me wanted it too. Click on the subscribe button on the screen to subscribe to Inquisco for more real and true stories like this.